All right, week 9 of the semester. We're doing good. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Um, this week, we are going to start chapter 4 of the Law of Running. This is such a great chapter, especially since we live here in Las Vegas and we deal with heat and um, I was going to say humidity, but obviously no humidity here. Humidity is very low. Maybe 20% is a high humidity here. Now, when I grew up back east, humidity could be 90%, 95%. Very different climate when you have some humidity. Nevertheless, we have some real hot temperatures here. And, exercising in the heat is really interesting. And there's some neat physiology behind it, and we need to understand it. Now, my bias for going through the material in this chapter is exercising in the heat because we live in the Southwest. If we lived up in the North, maybe we would do more focus on exercise in the cold. But exercising in cold is just as interesting. Uh, so you may actually find yourself drawn in that direction. But some really great material. Noakes does a really neat job of covering this concept called dehydration, and it's a neat concept to go through. And he does a neat job of challenging the ideas and recommendations we have for how much to drink during exercise. And although this book was written some time ago, there is still quite a bit of debate in terms of what the recommendations are for hydration during endurance performance, endurance training, and what have you. And it's all predicated on sweat rate and trying to understand the weight lost due to sweating and how much fluid should be used to replace the sweat rate and what the content of that fluid should be. If it should have just be plain water, if it should be electrolytes, or if there should even be carbohydrate in that drink. So it's really a neat chapter that covers a pretty broad range of concepts from dehydration to carbohydrate intake via fluids and obviously staying cool. Uh, okay, but I'm going to do a little less material this week because I want to make sure that you're spending time on your projects. And I've met with you at week 8, and it sounds like the projects are overall moving along really well. You're asking some good questions, you're coming up with terms, and you're getting things organized. That's great. But I do want to make sure that you have enough time to work on it even this week, week 9, and then we'll be really wrapping this all up pretty soon. So I just put 2 parts in this week for chapter 4. Next week, I've got another 2 parts. So week 10, there will be another 2 parts. And those are the videos. I do have the notes up in Canvas as well that you can download and follow along. All right, so a number of you have asked for example presentations, and I've always hesitated and I'm putting these out. And I hesitate because you do not need to follow any particular type of format when you're putting together your semester project presentation. But I've listed 5 examples here, and I'm not going to tell you the grade of these. I want you to look at them, and then you can pull what you like about them and into your presentation, or you can change it. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has obviously changed things for us. And what I have here is these first 3 presentations were from this past summer where we were adhering to COVID-19 restrictions and getting together. I'm going to continue with that theme and that I expect you all to be working remotely on your projects. So you're not meeting in person to do anything. But you'll see the format for these presentations were largely built around a PowerPoint, which is fine. And if you want to go down that path, that can be a very good path to go down, and you can really do a really great job with that. But what I did is I included 2 pre-COVID-19 presentations, and you'll see a little bit more interaction between the group members, which again, we're not doing. but maybe you can come up with a creative way to interact with each other. You can use Zoom. You can each be on a Zoom call and you can have a conversation. Or if you're going through a presentation, you can each have a video going while you do that, or exchange those videos, or who's sharing which screen. I think there's some neat things you can do. You're not being graded on creativity, okay? Now, it is important to have a good quality project, and the goal is to develop something and produce something that will get a message across to a group of people who are training for an endurance event. But I wanted to add these two just to let you know that there are other ways to go with putting this presentation together. You could, individually film something, videotape something that you're doing, and then combine those videos. All right. So just some options, and you can look at them, and again, pull what you like and avoid doing what you don't like. What I hope you see are the presentations that highlight the terms and highlight the empirical evidence are good presentations, because that's really what we've been focusing on when we've met and discussed, is making sure you're defining things clearly, and you're picking four key terms, concepts to go through, and then you're also basing your answer on empirical evidence. Oh, also, these first three will have an innovation component in the presentation. These two do not, because we were not doing the innovation piece at that point. That's something that I just started adding in. All right, I've left, I included two other presentations. As I've mentioned before, do not watch these with the sense that this is test material, all right? These presentations are more just to immerse you in the endurance world and to see what people are talking about. My goal is that you watch these videos and you have a greater interest in learning the physiology of endurance performance. I strongly believe that if you start trying to apply material that you're learning in courses, you'll learn it at a deeper, more meaningful level than if you just go through the course and just try to know what you need to know for the test situation. So really, these presentations, don't watch them for tests, but watch them to immerse yourself in the topic. And maybe you see things that you agree, maybe you hear things that don't sound right, and that's all good. Or maybe you hear something new that challenges the way that you think. So the first one is with two professional triathletes, and they've also started a coaching program called Keep It Simple. And it was neat to talk with them about their journey in triathlon. The second one is with someone who has a company called Optimized Fat Metabolism, and he does have a product to sell, but he has some interesting ideas on using fat as a fuel for endurance performance. So again, watch these. I put this one especially as optional. Both of these are really optional because they're not test material. But I believe that if you have an interest in the area, that you will learn this material up here in chapter 4 better. You'll learn a little bit more about why it's important to know something about thermal regulation, or because these are both sort of more focused on a little bit of nutrition. You'll learn a little bit more about why should I be looking at taking in carbohydrates? Why should I be looking to take in fats during an endurance performance? What's the reason for that? And so these will give you a little bit more practical application of the material that we've covered in previous chapters. Okay, the project for this week, week 9, I want you to take all the terms that you've been working with and finalize your list of 4 terms and 4 research papers. I know some of you have done that and you're moving along good. Some of you are still at a stage where you have a lot of terms written down, and that's great. That is an important part to identifying the 4 terms that you want to highlight in the project. So, but now it's time to start zeroing in on what you're going to cover in that 5-minute presentation. So it's time to make some decisions and zero in there. Now, if you do change the terms, it's no problem. All right. If you do change the papers that you include, that's okay too. But we need to start somewhere and start building the presentation based upon some of the content. So narrow the terms down, talk amongst yourselves, and come to an agreement on the terms that you'll emphasize for the presentation, and then the 4 papers that you will as well. And then, start pulling the presentation together. Think about what you're going to cover in that 5 minutes, which is not easy. So I did a presentation just this past week for a professional organization, and I was told I needed to do a 15-minute presentation. That was my window. And I said, okay, well, I put my stuff together. I practiced my presentation. It was 45 minutes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get this down to 15 minutes. And that's the challenge that a lot of you will have, is how do you start selecting material to include or selecting material to keep out? It's really hard at times. But that is part of the reason why doing a 5-minute presentation, because you really have to take a step back and think about what's the critical information that you want to get across. And more is not necessarily better. And so in my presentation, I had to take out slides, I had to take out some data that I was presenting. I had to focus the presentation a little bit more on the question at hand, and I was still 20 minutes. But they said that was okay. So I lucked out. All right, so I didn't add up the time here, but this is 40 minutes worth of material. These are each right around 5 minutes. You don't have to watch them all, but you can get a sense of them. And again, these are really optional, but I do hope that you watch them and get a sense for how to apply the material, and hopefully learn the material at a deeper, more meaningful level. Okay, and that will take us through week 9. Thank you.